The sky above the planet Vornok was dark red, filled with smoke and dust from burning trash mountains. Screams and shouting echoed through the air as the great slave auction began in the center of the city. Alien warlords, traitors, and gang leaders sat in golden seats, waving credit sticks and yelling bids. Under the bright lights, dozens of slaves were pushed into a metal cage, collars glowing, arms tied, eyes wide with fear. The announcer, a tall creature with 6 arms and a metal voice box, stood on a platform. Next up, he shouted, "We have strong fighters from the Rim worlds, rare beauties from the Zari system, and ha!" Even a mind reader. Cheers erupted, hands went up, credits poured in. Each slave was dragged forward, shown like an animal, then taken away by their new master, but in the shadows of the platform, away from the crowd's hungry eyes, sat a small figure. Her head was down, her skin pale gray, her leg twisted the wrong way from an old injury. She was dirty, wearing only torn cloth and a rusted collar that dug deep into her skin. She didn't cry or scream anymore. She just stared at the ground, silent like stone. The announcer smirked and pointed at her. "And here's one last deal." He laughed. "Damaged goods, can't walk right, doesn't talk, probably won't live long." The crowd laughed. Some even threw fruit at her. "She's broken." Someone shouted, "Send her to the mines." "No," said another, "feed her to the blood dogs." The auctioneer raised his hand to wave her away. Then came a voice, calm and soft, but loud enough to stop the room. "I'll take the broken one." The laughter died, heads turned, and silence fell over the auction pit. A human man stepped out from the crowd. He was wearing dusty clothes, an old jacket with oil stains, and boots worn from travel. His face was plain. Not rich, not famous, just normal. The announcer blinked, confused. "What did you say? Human?" The man pointed toward the girl in the corner. "I'll take her," he repeated. "How much?" The crowd began to murmur. "Is he mad? She's worthless. Humans are strange. He wants that." The announcer chuckled. "You must be joking, friend. She's not even worth a meal." The man walked forward, eyes locked on the girl. He pulled out a credit stick and said, "This is double the asking price. Give her to me." The announcer raised a brow, shrugged, and waved his hand. "Fine, take her. But don't come crying when she falls apart." The collar light blinked red and unlocked. The girl looked up, eyes full of shock, as the man knelt beside her. He didn't grab her chain. He offered, his hand palm open. She stared at it, frozen. No one had ever done that before. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you out of here." Slowly, she reached out, her fingers shaking as they touched his. He helped her stand, carefully supporting her weight. She winced, her broken leg barely holding her. The crowd watched in silence as the human led her away. No chains, no leash, just kindness as they reached the edge of the arena. The announcer leaned toward a shadowed guard. "Follow him," he whispered. "The syndicate won't like this." Backstage, a tall alien in black armor stepped out of the shadows. His eyes glowed red, his voice deep and cruel. "No one steals from the syndicate," he growled. "Not even a human." The girl limped beside her new master, her heart pounding in fear and confusion. She didn't know his name, didn't know where they were going, but for the first time in her life, someone had looked at her not as property, but as a person, and deep inside her, something small and forgotten began to flicker. Hope, *, the walk from the auction pit to the outskirts of the city, felt longer than it really was. The girl's leg dragged behind her, and her body trembled with each step, but the human never let go of her hand. He walked slowly, adjusting his pace so she wouldn't fall. Crowds still stared, some whispering, some laughing. Why would a human waste money on that? She's broken, blind, and one eye too. He's a fool. The human didn't answer them. He kept his eyes forward and his grip firm. Not tight like a master, but steady like someone who wanted her to know she wouldn't be left behind. Again at the edge of the city, they reached a quiet old shuttle, rusted but strong. He helped her climb the steps, and she collapsed into a seat, breathing hard. The door hissed shut. Locking out the noise of the marketplace, he walked to the front, tapped a few buttons, and the shuttle lifted into the sky. No guards followed. No one dared yet. As the engines hummed, the human turned and looked at her. She sat curled in the corner, arms around her knees. Watching him like a frightened animal, he didn't come close. He just crouched down at a distance, his voice calm and soft. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "Not now, not ever." The girl didn't answer. He continued. "You don't have to call me master. My name is Jace." Still. Silence. He sighed and opened a storage bin beside him, pulled out a bottle of water and a wrapped food bar. He placed them on the seat next to her, then backed away. She stared at the food like it might explode. Slowly, her hand reached for the water. She sniffed it, then drank, then unwrapped the food and took small bites, each one faster than the last. He smiled gently. "You must be starving." Her lips moved. Just barely, not a word, but a whisper. Like a breeze, he didn't press her. Instead, he turned back to the control panel, letting her feel safe. Later, as the stars filled the windows and the planet faded behind them, she finally spoke. Her voice was dry, small, unsure. "Why?" Jace looked over his shoulder, his face serious. "Now, you were the only one no one wanted," he said, "and I hate seeing people thrown away." She blinked, her single working eye wide. "No one ever picked me before," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but now you've been picked. And not for what you can do, not for how you look, just because I saw someone who needed help." Silence returned, but this time it wasn't cold. She sat straighter. The food now gone, the water bottle empty. Her legs still hurt badly, but her heart felt different, not whole, but not fully shattered anymore. The shuttle touched down in a quiet valley far from the city. A hidden repair shop sat nestled among rocky hills, lights glowing warmly. Jace stepped out first, then turned to help her again. She hesitated, but then took his hand. Inside, the place smelled of metal, oil, and old sparks. Strange machines lined the walls. Half-built bots and scattered parts everywhere. A small sleeping mat sat in the corner beside a heat lamp. He pointed to it. "You can sleep there. It's not much, but it's clean and safe." She sat slowly, looking around. He brought her a soft blanket, freshly washed, as she lay down. Her eyes followed him as he worked. He was fixing some device she didn't understand, but he moved with care and focus. "Why do you live here alone?" she asked, surprising herself. He paused, then shrugged. "Used to work for the Alliance, fixing starships, but I got tired of being told who mattered and who didn't." He looked at her again. "You matter." Those two words echoed in her head like thunder in an empty cave. You matter. That night, as he turned off the lights and let her rest, he didn't lock a cage, didn't chain her to the wall. He simply said, "Good night," and walked to his own corner for the first time. In years, she slept without fear, but miles away, on a tall watchtower, a cloaked figure watched a glowing screen. A red dot blinked where the shuttle had landed. The alien captain's eyes narrowed. "The human took her," he hissed. "The syndicate will not let this insult go." He tapped a communicator. "Send a team. I want the girl back." He paused, then grinned cruelly, "And bring me the human's head." The next morning, light from two small suns leaked through the cracks in the metal roof. Inside the old repair shop, everything was silent, except for the soft hum of machines waking up. The girl opened her eyes slowly. She expected chains, darkness, Cold floors but found a soft blanket wrapped around her. She sat up, blinking in confusion. The pain in her leg was still there, sharp and deep. Now, but something else had changed. There was no yelling, no cage. No heavy collar pulling her down across the room. Jay stood near a large workbench, welding a panel to something that looked like a small cargo bot. His hair was messy, and oil covered his hands. He hadn't noticed her yet. She watched him work. Confused by how calm he was, no anger, no orders, no threats, just quiet focus. Finally, he turned around and smiled when he saw her awake. "Morning," he said, walking over with a tray. "I made something for you. It's not fancy, but it's real food." He placed the tray beside her, a bowl of warm noodles, a piece of bread, and a glass of clean water. She stared at it like it was a trick, but he didn't force her, didn't. "Even stand too close. You can eat when you're ready," he said, turning back to his tools. She waited, testing, watching him carefully. Then, slowly, she began to eat. It was the best thing she'd tasted in years, not because of the flavor, but because no one tried to rip it from her hands. When she finished, she looked around the shop. It was messy, but full of strange machines, blinking lights, and metal shells. "Where is this?" she asked. Jace looked up from his work. "My shop," he said, "out in the hills. No one comes here unless I call them." She tilted her head. "Why bring me here?" He paused, setting his tool down. Then he pointed to a small device on the table. It was a mechanical leg brace, half finished, made from recycled parts. "For your leg," he said. "I'm going to help you walk again." Her eyes widened. She looked down at her damaged leg, swollen and weak from old injuries. "No one ever tried to fix me?" she whispered. He walked over, kneeling beside her. "Well, I'm not no one," he said gently. She looked away, unsure what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even once. She didn't know if it was a trick, or worse, a test. But a small, warm feeling was growing in her chest. He worked all day, stopping only to check if she needed water or rest. He never touched her without asking, never raised his voice. He built a brace that looked strange but sturdy, with soft padding and adjustable supports. When he finally brought it to her, she stared at it with trembling hands, ready to try. He asked. She nodded slowly. He helped her strap it on, careful and gentle. Like someone fixing glass, she stood up with his help. Her leg wobbling, pain hit her, but not as sharp as before. She took one step, then another, leaning on his shoulder, and then she smiled. "Just a little, you did it," he said proudly. "No," she replied, "we did it." The moment was quiet, warm, like a forgotten memory returned, but it didn't last. Far above the hills, a small spy drone hovered, silent and deadly. It sent a signal back to a black ship hidden in orbit. Inside, a syndicate captain stared at the feed. He zoomed in on the girl's face, now partially clean. Eyes brighter. "She's healing," he hissed. "Unacceptable." He turned to his soldiers, armored and armed. "Prepare a team," he growled. "We leave tonight." Back in the workshop, Jace was checking the generator when he saw the girl staring at something. She had found an old mirror, cracked and dusty. She touched her face, shocked at what she saw. "I look different," she whispered. "You look alive," he said. She turned to him. The fear in her eyes slowly replaced with something else, trust. "What do I call you?" she asked. "Jace is fine," he said. She hesitated, then added, "I don't remember my real name," he nodded. "Then maybe it's time you choose one." She looked at the mirror again, thinking hard, then softly said, "Alia." Jace smiled. "Nice to meet you, Alia." That night, Alia sat beside a small heater, wrapped in her blanket. Jace worked quietly on another project. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them was peaceful. Neither of them knew that something was coming, not just danger. but a test that would shake everything they'd started to build. Outside, in the darkness of the hills, shadows moved, and a red light blinked beneath the sand. The days that followed were quiet but full of change. The old workshop, once filled only with the sounds of machines, now echoed with footsteps, soft voices, and something else, hope. Alia woke early. Always before Jace, she would sit near the heater, watching the morning light slip through cracks in the roof. Her leg brace still hurt a little, but each day it hurt less. Every morning Jace would bring her breakfast, never forgetting. Sometimes it was just protein mush and flatbread, but to her it was a feast. One day he surprised her with a slice of spiced fruit. She took a bite, eyes wide, and whispered, "Sweet." Jace laughed, wiping grease from his hands. That's a good sign. He spent long hours building things: drones, shield batteries, repair bots, but no matter how busy he was, he always made time for her. He even built her a small stool with wheels so she could move around the shop without standing too much. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Alia began helping in small ways. She cleaned tools, organized wires, and learned the names of parts. At first, she was clumsy, dropping things, flinching at every loud sound. But Jace never yelled. Never. Sighed in frustration, he would just smile and say, "Try again, you're learning." And she did. One afternoon, Jace was struggling to fix a busted power regulator. Wires sparked and his tools slipped, nearly burning his hand. Alia rushed over, grabbed a cooling rod, key, and pressed it against the heat panel. The sparks stopped, and the machine calmed. Jace blinked, then looked at her in surprise. "You just saved my hand." She smiled proudly. "I remembered the schematic you showed me that night." He gave her a small Gifton old datapad with simple blueprints. "You've got a smart mind, Alia," he said. "Use it." She held the pad like it was treasure, her eyes shining, but outside the walls. Danger crept closer. In the rocky hills beyond the workshop, Syndicate scouts had set up camp. Their commander, a cruel alien with silver skin and sharp eyes, watched the workshop through long-range lenses. "The girl is walking," he growled. "And she's working." A soldier beside him asked, "Should we wait for orders?" "No," the commander said coldly. "We move tomorrow night. We'll take them both inside." Alia had no idea what was coming. That night, she sat near the heater, watching Jace fix a broken servo arm. She leaned her head on the table, relaxed. Eyes slowly closing, Jace looked over and smiled. He covered her with the blanket, careful not to wake her. Then, quietly, he walked to a locked crate in the back of the shop. He opened it and stared at what was inside: a long metal case marked with military codes. He opened the case, revealing an old plasma rifle, a worn soldier's badge, and a dog tag. The name on the tag was Jace Rylan, Engineer Sergeant Earth, Defense Corps. He ran his fingers over the weapon, then closed the case. He hadn't touched it in years, but something in him knew he might need it again. The next morning, Alia woke up early. She surprised Jace by making him tea burnt and too strong, but it made him laugh. "You're getting dangerous in the kitchen," he joked. She giggled, covering her mouth. It was the first time he had heard her laugh, and for a moment, the world felt peaceful. They worked together on a hoverbike engine, side by side. Alia's hands were steady, her voice more confident. "Maybe one day," she said, "I could build my own brace. You could build a ship if you wanted." Jace replied, "You just needed the chance." As the sun dipped behind the hills, Alia sat on the roof of the workshop. She looked up at the stars, wondering if her people were out there, or if they had ever cared. Jace joined her, holding a warm drink. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked. He nodded. "Sometimes, but I stayed because I thought I had no purpose anymore." She looked at him, and now smiled. "Now I think I found one." Below them, in the dirt beyond the shop, a small camera lens rose. From the soil, it blinked once, silently marking its target inside a Syndicate dropship. Red lights flashed. Target confirmed. The soldier said, "Orders." The commander grinned. "Tonight, we remind the galaxy what happens to traitors." But inside the workshop, Jace was already preparing. He placed hidden motion sensors along the roof, reinforced the front door, charged the defense grid small. Upgrades he had put off for years. Something in his gut told him this piece would not last. And Elashi felt it too. That night, she checked the locks herself, sat closer to the wall, eyes alert, brace ready by her side. She had once been a broken slave, silent and afraid. Now she was learning to stand, learning to fight, and above all learning what it meant to matter. Midnight fell over the valley like a black curtain. The wind howled through the rocks, and the stars blinked cold above inside the rusted workshop. Everything was still. Jace was asleep in his corner, his arm resting over a half-built drone, Alia. Lay curled near the heater, eyes closed, but heart pounding. She didn't know why, but her body refused to rest. Something felt wrong, like the air itself had turned sharp. Then, without warning, the silence shattered. A high-pitched alarm screamed through the shop. Motion sensors had tripped. Jace jumped to his feet. Wide awake in an instant, he grabbed the plasma tool from the workbench and ran to the window outside. Shadows moved 6, maybe 7 figures, all armored. Weapons glowing. "Alia, get behind the wall," he said, his voice calm but firm. She didn't argue. She grabbed her brace and crawled behind the metal storage racks. Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket over herself. Jace flipped a switch. Outside floodlights roared to life, blinding the attackers. They fired first. Plasma bolts slamming into the walls, shaking the shop. Jace ducked, rolled to cover, and fired back with a high-pressure cutter. It wasn't a weapon, but at close range, it could melt through armor. He hit one of the attackers square in the chest. The Syndicate soldier screamed and fell, smoke rising from his suit, but more came. Breaking through the door with a heavy blast, the shop filled with sparks, smoke, and chaos. Alia covered her ears, heart racing. Then she heard Jace cry out. Grunt of pain, she peeked out and saw him bleeding. His leg hit, crawling toward her. One of the attackers stepped into the room, taller than the others, his armor black and shining. His weapon pointed straight at Jace. "No more running, human," he growled. "We only came for the girl, but now you both die." Alia froze, her mind spinning. She could hide, stay down, wait for it to be over. But then she looked at Jace, the only person who ever treated her like she mattered, and something inside her broke open. She stood, shaky but upright, and grabbed a plasma wrench, her brace whirred, gears clicking as she took a step forward. Her body screamed in pain, but she didn't stop. "Get away from him," she said, her voice shaking but loud. The soldier turned, surprised to see her standing. "Stay down, girl," he sneered. But she didn't. She threw the wrench, hitting him in the faceplate. It cracked the visor, made him stumble. Jace reached up and pulled the trigger on his cutter, burning through the man's chest armor. The soldier dropped, twitching, but more were entering now. 3 of them, surrounding Alia. She picked up a broken pipe, ready to fight. They circled her, laughing. "She thinks she's a warrior." One said, "Let's break her again." Another hissed, but Alia remembered every cage, every kick, every cruel hand that held her down, and she screamed not in fear, but in fury. She swung wildly, hitting one in the knee joint, Jace still on the ground. Through a small shock device, stunning another. Then, out of nowhere, the shop's defense. GRID kicked in automated lasers, firing warning shots. It had been damaged earlier, but her repairs from last week had reactivated just enough. The 3rd soldier turned and ran, yelling into his comm, "Abort, abort!" She's fighting back. Within minutes, the syndicate squad retreated, leaving 2 of their own behind. Jace crawled to Alia, blood on his face. "You okay?" asked. Gasping, she knelt beside him, cradling his head. "You're the one bleeding," she said, tears in her eyes. He smiled, weak but proud. "You stood up, Alia." "You stood up." She helped him to the back of the shop where the medkit was stored. Her hands were shaky, but she cleaned his wounds, applied sealant, and wrapped the bandage tightly. He winced, but didn't complain. As he rested, she sat beside him, her body still shaking. "I didn't want to be afraid anymore." She whispered. "You weren't." He said softly, "You were brave. You saved me, outside." The night was still again, but this time, the silence felt different. The danger hadn't ended. The syndicate would return stronger and angrier. But now, Alia wasn't a broken girl in the corner. She was a fighter, and Jace wasn't just a mechanic. He was family. They had survived the first attack, and together, they would face whatever came next. The night after the attack felt heavy and strange. Smoke still hung in the air, and the metal walls of the workshop were scorched. But the quiet wasn't the same as before, was deeper, like the world had changed. Jace lay on the cot, bandages around his chest, his face pale. His breathing was slow but steady. Alia sat beside him, her hands trembling, but her eyes burning. With focus, she had cleaned the blood, sealed the windows, and locked every door. Her body ached, her leg brace sparking from damage. But she didn't stop. She moved through the shop like someone with purpose. Not like a slave, not like a broken girl, but like someone who had made a decision no one would ever take him away from her. She worked through the night, repairing the defense grid, rewiring the backup shields. She studied the drones, rewrote their commands. By morning, 3 of them were patrolling the roof, scanning for movement. Jace woke up coughing. Alia rushed to his side, gently helping him sit up. "You should rest," she said. He smiled weakly. "I was resting till your little army started walking around." She almost laughed, but her voice cracked. "I thought you were going to die." He reached for her hand, squeezing it. "You saved me, Alia," he whispered. "And you fought." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "They called me worthless." "Ash," she said. "A toy. A thing. But when I saw them hurt you, I wasn't scared anymore." Jace leaned back, watching her. "You're not broken," he said. "You're becoming who you were always meant to be." Later that day, Alia powered up the comm system. A tiny blinking light showed an incoming message encrypted. She hesitated, then opened it. A small screen flickered to life, and a woman appeared on Alien Reporter, face tired, voice urgent. "This is Tavi Oren of the Outernet Network," the message began. "We've received footage of a syndicate strike on a civilian workshop, and what appears to be a former slave defending a human." Alia's heart stopped. A second screen showed camera drone footage, her, limping forward, brace sparking, weapon in hand. Standing between Jace and death, the reporter continued, "2. The brave girl with the brace. We want to know your name. The galaxy wants to know who you are." Alia stared at the screen, her fingers curling into fists. They all laughed at her once, spat on her, ignored her. Now they wanted to know her name. She walked to the corner of the room where her old collar lay. She picked it up, stared at it, then threw it into the furnace. The flames swallowed it whole, and she didn't look back. That night, she recorded her own message. She stood in front of the workshop wall, patched with metal and scars from the attack. Her voice was steady. "My name is Alia Wren," she said. "I was sold, beaten, forgotten. Left behind." She paused, eyes locked on the camera. "But a human gave me a blanket, and food, and a name. He didn't see a slave, he saw me. I'm not weak, not broken, and I won't run anymore. If the syndicate wants to come back, let them." Her hand rested on her brace. Now upgraded with tools and shock cables, they'll see what I've become. She ended the message, uploaded it to the open net, and waited. The next morning, the views were already rising, thousands of shares. Messages pouring in, some praising her, some shocked, and some warning her that the syndicate wouldn't take this humiliation quietly. But Alia didn't care. She spent her time upgrading the defenses, teaching herself to code new drone patterns. She fixed Jace's rifle, cleaned every tool, learned every wire in the shop. She even started building a new brace one she designed herself. Jace watched her from the cot, amazed. "You're not just surviving anymore," he said one evening. "You're preparing for war." Alia nodded. "Not war," she said. "Justice." That night, the stars looked closer. Brighter. She stood on the roof, wind in her hair, metal brace glowing under moonlight. She had come from a cage, from filth and silence. Now she stood on metal and fire. No chains on her limbs, no fear in her voice. And across the galaxy, people were beginning to whisper her name. The broken girl who fought back, the slave who stood, Alia Wren. The suns were rising again, casting soft golden light over the hills. The wind carried the scent of burned metal and dust, but inside the workshop, there was warmth, movement, and something new, hope that didn't feel fragile anymore. Jace sat in a rolling chair, his leg wrapped in new bandages. He was stronger now, healing slowly but surely. Across from him, Alia stood tall, her custom-built brace gleaming like polished armor. Wires ran down her leg into the boot, powered by a tiny reactor she built herself. "You look like a superhero," Jace said with a proud grin. She smiled back. "No cape yet, but maybe I'll make one." She had cut her hair short, cleaned her skin, and wore a jacket made from salvaged cloth and old tool belts. But what truly changed was how she walked. Not with shame, not with fear. She walked like someone who had survived the fire and come out shining. The galaxy had already started whispering her name, but it was the message she sent 2 nights ago that made it explode. Across hundreds of systems, news anchors repeated her words. Children drew pictures of a one-legged girl holding a plasma wrench. Former slaves sent messages saying, "Because of you, I stood up today," and the syndicate. They went silent, too humiliated to respond publicly. But Alia knew they hadn't given up. They were waiting, plotting, still. She wasn't hiding anymore. That day, something unexpected happened. A sleek ship landed near the shop, white, unarmed, and marked with the peace symbol of the United Colonies. 2 ambassadors stepped out, followed by a medic team and a translator drone. Jace watched from the doorway, cautious, but Alia stepped forward first, her shoulders back, her eyes sharp. The ambassador bowed his head. "Miss Alia Wren," he said, "you are being recognized by the Galactic Tribunal as a free citizen, protected under the Survivor Rights Act." She blinked, unsure what to say. He continued, "The footage you sent inspired millions. You have sparked an investigation into the syndicate slave trade, and..." He hesitated. "We would like to offer you a position." Jace raised an eyebrow. "What kind of position?" The ambassador smiled. "Trainer, engineer, advocate, whatever she wants." "We just want her voice to be heard." Alia didn't answer. Right away, she looked around at the shop, at the dusty hills, at Jace. This place had saved her. This man had believed in her when no one else did. She turned back to the ambassador. "I'm not ready to leave," she said softly, "but I'll speak. I'll build, I'll teach. From here," he nodded. "Then we'll send the tools you need." That evening, as the ship left, Alia sat beside Jace on the roof. The stars were just starting to shine again. They didn't talk much, just shared the quiet. Then Jace asked, "Do you regret choosing your name?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "I chose Alia because it means sky in an old tongue." He smiled. "It fits you." She looked at him, her voice softer now. "But I want to add one more thing." He turned, curious. "I want to be Alia Ren Rylan." She said, "If that's okay." His breath caught. He wasn't her father. Not by blood, not her owner, not her rescuer, not her hero. But something in between all of those things at once, and more. He nodded, eyes wet. "It's more than." "Okay," he said, voice cracking. They sat together, quiet. As the wind passed over them, below, the drones still patrolled, the shop still buzzed. And the galaxy kept spinning, but one thing had changed forever. The broken girl who no one had wanted the last to be picked. The one they laughed at, ignored, and called worthless had changed everything, not with weapons, but with her will. With her choice to stand up, with the name she had chosen, not the one they gave her, Alia Ren Rylan. And from that moment on, whenever anyone asked, who was the girl who started it all, they would remember her not as a slave, but as the first spark in a galaxy that had been dark for far too long.